Hey everyone, this is Mike. I'm an INTP. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about something that's very exciting because, I'm not sure why it's exciting to me, but it's an interesting question. The differences between an INTP and an INTJ, they get confused, or they don't get confused as much as people wonder which one they are, especially when they're first typing themselves. The only difference is you will only see an INTP with a backwards hat. You will probably never see an INTJ wearing a backwards hat. And now someone out there is going to tell me I'm wrong. Some INTJ is going to be like, I'm an INTJ and I'm wearing a backwards hat right now. Well, you would be the one INTJ in the entire world. No, just kidding. But generally speaking, INTJs are a little more formal. Js in general are more formal than perceivers. And since we're on physical differences, some people reject the idea of physical differences, but there are some definitely mannerisms between, and I don't usually talk about the letter dichotomies because it's more complicated than that, but there are differences between perceivers and judgers, J-types, which really just means if you're a J-type, it means, I won't get into that right now, but there's reasons why you're called a J-type and a P, perceiver type, in the myers-briggs. Different in socionics. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that right now. I tend to go down rabbit holes, so we'll hold off on that one. One thing is perceivers. In fact, you can probably tell right now I'm an INTP, and I just noticed this is a good example. I'm moving around in my chair. Perceivers tend to be a little more playful in their movements, a little more, also a little more fluid. J's tend to be a little more erect, a little more formal, usually more formal. Perceivers tend to be more play before work, and judgers tend to be more work before play. And maybe that's part of it too. Perceivers just kind of approach things in a more playful way. But anyway, let's get into the nitty-gritty of this. So the first one is the backwards baseball cap. That's the most important difference. You will never see an INTJ with a backwards baseball cap. And that's the most important thing out of the entire video. So yeah. Number one, INTJs, and I think this is probably the biggest difference between them. And maybe I shouldn't say biggest because someone's going to correct me on that one. But I think it's one of the bigger ones. Is INTJs tend to be more self-assured, or not self-assured. They're more assured in their viewpoints, in their perspectives. That's one of the ways you will distinguish them. They will not second-guess themselves very often, if ever, really. I mean, they're very, if they're expressing a judgment, they're very certain of it. It's a direct contrast to INTPs, who are, due to the nature of their function stack, so they have extroverted intuition as their second function. They're constantly second-guessing themselves, constantly questioning whether their information is accurate. And the reason this is because of their extroverted intuition. They're so aware of all the different possibilities and perspectives that they know they could very well be wrong. Sometimes they know a little bit too well that, because when it comes down to it, INTJs are more effective in the real world. They affect change more because they're more confident in their conclusions. They're willing to be wrong and make the decision, knowing later they can fix it. Whereas perceivers, INTPs, would rather not be wrong at all. And they have a tendency to put off making decisions, and that perpetual search for being right and exact and whatever else. And sometimes that can make them lead them down a path where they never make decisions. They never get anything done, which is stressful to an INTP because all NTs value achievement. So anyway, that's one of the big differences. The levels so that's number one, the self-assurance in their viewpoints. In a debate, an INTJ is going to be more comfortable making bold assertions and say this is a fact and just kind of lay it out there, whereas an INTP would be more comfortable exploring ideas and asking questions, posing questions for the person to try to figure out what they believe, and then kind of pinpoint the errors in what they've said or their position. They're more comfortable going about it a little more because their extroverted functions are NE, extroverted intuition, and FE, extroverted feeling. Those are the functions they extrovert, that they use in the outside world, project to the outside world. So the first one is a perceiving function. It's not a judging function. NE is their first extroverted function they use in the outside world. It's not a judging function. So they're not as comfortable as INTJs making judgments about the outside world and directing people and things like that. Whereas INTJs are much more comfortable being a delegator or directing people because their second function is extroverted thinking, TE, which is an extroverted judging function. So yeah, that's and extroverted also means objective. It's called an objective. When a function is extroverted, it's called objective, meaning by the object. Whereas an introverted function is subjective, based on the subject. So because INTJ's dominant function is introverted intuition, basically subjective intuition, both types tend to have like aha moments, but INTJ's aha moments tend to come out of nowhere, just like out of nowhere. Like literally taking a shower or something, and all of a sudden they get an aha moment. Whereas INTPs will have aha moments based on something they're already working on, based on the object, the things they're already connecting ideas to, they're already exploring something, exploring an idea, or working on something. That's when they'll get the aha moments, when it has to do with other things they're already thinking about, the subject. Whereas INTJs, like INFJs, can just get aha moments out of nowhere. Just like, whoa, there's that idea. So yeah. Another thing is, because INTJs extrovert their thinking, extroverted thinking, outsiders will encounter their rational side much quicker than with an INTP. INTPs are a little more reticent to exhibit their rational side out of fear of looking arrogant or whatever else, or upsetting people, or because they have that inferior FE, which is FE wants that social approval and to please people, and the harmony. That's another difference I'll get to later. But anyway, INTJs, you'll see their rational side much quicker. INTPs have a tendency to hide their rational side at first. Because they extrovert NE and FE, like I said before, which is more about blending in and harmonizing rather than the other TE. INTPs are less comfortable challenging others in a direct, confrontational way. They can when they want to, when it's absolutely necessary. They'll do it if to defend a family member or whatever else. But they're less comfortable with it in just like a regular situation. Like, for example, there's this INTJ in one of my classes, and I actually think it's funny. He's always challenging the teacher. He's always just like, well, why'd you do that? Why don't you just do this differently? Why don't you just constantly. And he challenges the teacher in a way that, like, I would feel like I would get downgraded or something if I did it. Like, I wouldn't necessarily do that in the way he does, but he just doesn't think about it. He doesn't care. Either he doesn't care or he just doesn't think about it. Because INTJs just don't worry about social approval at all. Like, at all. And that's another thing. They have FE Trickster, which is their seventh function. They're kind of blind. to extroverted feeling, which is the function most concerned with social approval, which is why they really don't care what people think at all. And a lot of INTPs will tell you they don't care, but they really do in a way. They may not in some ways, but deep down, because they do have FE as their inferior, their fourth function, they do care about social approval and harmony and getting along with people and things like that. Whereas INTJs don't really care. Probably care less than any other type besides the ISTJ. But yeah, about the whole rational side, displaying a rational side, INTPs are a little more selective about displaying their rational side. They will with certain people, especially if it's like another NT type that's already displaying their rational side. I think they kind of wait until other people are displaying their rational side, and then they'll get in there. But they don't want to interrupt. That goes back to the FE. They don't want to interrupt the flow, the harmony in a situation, or appear cocky or whatever else. If other people are, talking about animals or something, and all of a sudden, they're like, "Oh, interesting thing about animals. There's some scientific fact." I don't know. But yeah. And also, INTJs, this goes back to their TE. A lot of the differences that has to do with the second function. Because INTJs have extroverted thinking as their second function. They're much more concerned with ordering the outside world and organizing it. In fact, INTJs are much more selective about the things they learn, too, because they want everything they learn to be used for the purpose of changing the outside world and accomplishing things in the here and now. They want to accomplish things, and in the future, very long range. They want everything to be directly related to accomplishing things in the outside world, whereas INTPs are very different. They want to learn things for learning's sake. It's often said. It doesn't mean they want to learn useless things, but they have a tendency to want to learn every last thing about a subject before they really feel comfortable calling themselves an expert on it. In fact, INTPs, a little advice to INTPs, you should start calling yourself an expert sooner than you think you're an expert. That's a little advice, because we tend to never think we're experts, even when we really are. When we know more than anyone else in the room, we still are second-guessing ourselves. It's just the way we are. It's the way our brain is wired. We're always probing ideas that we basically never think anything's a fact, 100%. But anyway, I kind of went off on a tangent there. Introverted thinking types like INTPs are more concerned with organizing their internal world of their ideas, concepts, and facts and things like that. They want the precise category to put it in their brain. So with INTPs, it's more about organizing their internal world, because their first function is introverted thinking, which is a judging function, introverted judging function. And INTJs are more concerned with organizing and structuring their outside world, because their first judging function is extroverted thinking. So that's a big difference too. INTJs are a little more scientifically minded than INTPs. INTPs are more philosophically minded. It kind of goes back to the whole truth for truth's sake, or knowledge for knowledge's sake ideas. Philosophy is more about exploring knowledge, and whereas science is more about external facts and going by the apparent facts, which is what TE does. TE is very good about apprehending the apparent facts and using them to their advantage. And INTPs, TI types, don't really like the idea of apparent facts. I mean, they don't really go by apparent facts. They don't see anything as an apparent fact. They don't see apparent facts as facts. Let's put it that way. Whereas TJs do, in a way. They'll go by the apparent facts, or maybe they do question them, but to them that's a waste of time. They'd rather go by the apparent facts to get her done, basically. So yeah, one of the big differences is their inferior functions. Your inferior function depending on which system of personality type psychology you're learning, which theory you're looking at, I believe in the theory that your inferior function sort of comes out in an inferior way because it's inferior, it's not developed, when you're under extreme stress. And INTPs and INTJs have a different inferior function. INTJs have extroverted sensing, and INTPs have extroverted feeling. So they actually they act differently when under extreme stress. An INTJ under a lot of stress, or sometimes if they're drunk or something, just a different state, because it's SE is their inferior function. They'll overindulge in sensory indulgences. I just said indulge twice, but you know what I mean. They'll overindulge in sensory, and they'll obsess over external details. They may drink or eat excessively, watch too much TV, over-exercise, or, like I said, become very obsessed with external details. Whereas an INTP is very different. When under extreme stress, they can actually become overly emotional, uncharacteristically emotional and insecure, and oftentimes feel like everyone hates them, kind of get into this mode. And when they get that way, INTPs, when you get that way, you gotta realize, tell yourself what's happening. Tell yourself it's actually your inferior function that's basically taking over, and you gotta remind yourself that no, everyone doesn't hate you. You have to kind of, it's hard to get out of it when you get into it, but it's like this loop, like they say, the TISI loop. You keep looping through all these past experiences and thinking, oh, I wonder what they thought when I said that, and this and that and that. They tend to overanalyze past experiences, whereas INTJs, their loop is a NIFI loop. They can actually become kind of very, very focused on perspectives, very, very focused on their NI, their perspectives and their long-range vision, and kind of become reclusive during these states. Reclusive and overly indulgent in sensory indulgences. And because of the FI, it's actually this NIFI loop, they can actually become kind of defensive too. It's like defending that FI, those feeling values. And they can actually, during those states, become kind of touchy to criticism and stuff like that, uncharacteristically so. And yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. In besides the ways that I mentioned, they're actually similar in a lot of ways, and they can get along very well. I noticed that I can talk to INTJs for a long time. You can actually have very productive and good conversations. So yeah, I hope this helped you guys out. Let me know what you thought, or let me know what you think in the comments, and have a good day.